right, we are live. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to this week's Trader Spotlight guest, Squeezy. Squeezy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, GA. I just want to say it's an absolute honor for me. I've been following you for a while, and I've always wanted to interact with you like this, so I really appreciate it.
I'm very flattered to hear that, man. I'm looking forward to this interview. Get inside your head and learn more from you firsthand. This is, again, I always say these Trader Spotlights are a gift for me because I'm learning so much from experienced traders such as yourself. Now, before we get into things, do you mind just giving a little background on, what your career background is prior to trading and how it led up to this?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm 29 years old. So when I graduated college, I started investing, more long-term investing, and I worked for an insurance company as an analyst there. And so I really didn't think about trading for a while. I was investing, the money that I made at work. Um, and then as I started investing more and researching more, I really had a knack for it and began trading. Um, but when you begin trading, I'm sure everyone can relate to this. You go through a lot of hardships and mistakes. So it was a rough road for me. Um, so really what led to my options trading career was me bouncing around as a confused 24-year-old, um, trying to find my niche and something that I'm good at. It took a lot of time, and working a full-time job on top of trading is tough. So when I used to have to go to the office more often. I was investing and swing trading longer. And then the last couple of years, I've been able to work from home. So I'm able to do some trading as well. So that kind of led to me being a more active trader. And in my career at the insurance company I work for, I do a lot of mentoring, like new hires and people that are just starting out. So that kind of led me down that path of like helping people learn to trade. After I've been through a lot of mistakes and hardships in trading, I wanted to help them out and, kind of ease that pain and that transition from, the beginning stages of trading to becoming a successful trader. So that's kind of my background, my profession, and how I started up in this.
Beautiful, beautiful. And now that you are this successful trader, um, how long did it take for you until you built a system that you are comfortable running day in, day out, and is just a staple for you? How long did it take, and exactly what is that system for Squeezy?
That's a great question. You know, just like everybody else, when I started out, I thought it was one of those things, trading was one of those things where it was like a get rich quick scheme. Um, I saw a lot of personalities on FinTwit. I was using my personal account at the time, my personal Twitter account, that I saw, people saying they're posting 250% gains daily. Things are being, run up all over the place. I was trading penny stocks. It was, how those go. And for me, it took me about 2 years of just making mistake after mistake after mistake, losing too much money, and realizing that this is not a good long-term plan for me. I'm super, super stubborn. It's just my nature. And it takes me getting punched in the mouth over and over again before I finally lose all of my teeth and I'm, on my knees like I give up and then my back against the wall and I, have to develop a system. So for me, it took about 2 years of just messing up over and over again. And then I said, you know what? This is not as easy as it looks. While trading is simple once you have a plan, it's not simple when you start out. and people try to overcomplicate it. So what I needed to do was track my trades. I was a very, very in-depth journaler. So I would go back and journal every single mistake, every win I had, and then at the end of the week, I would go and review. And I started to discover that the common problems I had were, um, entering too early, always chasing on, big momentum, but not waiting for a pullback. Um, the very common mistakes everyone makes, is trying to hold for 200% gainers and not scaling out, playing with too much position size. So then I sat down, I'm like, okay, I need to develop a plan. And that's kind of when I started exploring options trading. Um, and once I did my research, I read all the books everyone reads. I studied a lot of TA. I wasn't as big in VPA yet, using volume, but now I am. And I think for me, when I developed my system, it came down to realizing when you trade options, it's all about timing. With penny stocks and when I was trading before, you had room to add a bunch of dips, hold for a long time and end up making a profit if you were patient enough and the stock moved the right way, obviously. But with options, you don't have a lot of time if you're not buying time, or if you're a day trader and you're trading weeklies, you have to pick your entries carefully. So what I did was I started to kind of tailor my trading styles to me. um, and what I mean by that is I realized I'm not a great swing trader. I'm more of a in and out day trader. And I have trust issues with trading. So after being scarred for so long, with all the mistakes I made in the beginning of my career, so I ended up, tailoring a plan to myself where I scale out a lot of the time at 20%, 20, 30, 40, 50. I'll scale out all the way up. I'm not sitting there waiting for an 80% move. And then if the volume and price action, support it, I'll hold runners. But so to answer your question, it took me forever to convince myself that I needed a solid plan and system to execute. And then once I journaled my mistakes and my losses and everything, I realized I was rushing, not being patient on entries, and it kind of aligned with my options trading, the beginning of my options trading journey. And I learned that I'm a quick in and out kind of trader. So we can get into more of that if you'd like, my strategy, but I think that's something that everyone should be doing is they should be analyzing how they trade personally because they follow people like me or you or other big accounts, Theta Warrior, all of the big options traders, and they see how they trade and they automatically think that that's how they need to trade. And I think it comes down to creating a plan for yourself, and I'm sure you probably can agree with that as well, right?
100%, of course.
Yeah, and it's the tough thing that people have to go through when they realize that their personality, um, and their trading style doesn't have to be like like squeezies or GA options. You need to figure out what works best for you. I needed to figure out what I do best, and what I do best is now remaining patient on my entry and sticking to my plan that I've pounded into my head, which a lot of time revolves around a trend line break with confirmation and volume, volume profile. I love the Bollinger Band squeeze as confirmation. Um, so I need all of those things before I enter a trade. And then I make sure that I follow my 20, 30, 40% scale out plan. Because if I don't, more often times than not, I'm getting hit hard and losing. And I'd rather be a consistent trader pulling an average 30, 40% gain on those types of plays than a trader that hits a home run at 200%, but then gets knocked out of his socks for a 200% or 100% loss, I should say. Um, it's tough. You have to balance it out, and for me, it comes down to um, just being disciplined and figuring out what works best for me.
Right, right. Now, while you were mentioning technical analysis like your boulder bend, squeeze, and your trend line breaks, is there a certain specific combination of indicators that is your go-to setup? For example, some people might have a holy grail setup, some people might look for golden crosses. Is there a certain combination that screams out to Squeezy where he is in on the play? Those are one of his golden setups.
Yes. Actually, can I share my screen and show you a setup that I
Of
took advantage
course.
of?
Of course. Yeah, you
Perfect.
have full
Alrighty.
control over that right now.
All right, let me see if I can get this set up. Okay.
Perfect.
All right, cool. So I think a lot of people were on Netflix, over the last month and a half or so, but I wasn't really listening to everybody else. I was looking for a setup that worked for me. And so there's two different styles I have in trading. I will use the daily charts as a gauge for maybe the entire week, watch for the entire week. And this, is the kind of setup that I keep on my radar for at least a week to come. And then the second kind of setup I look at, or I should say the second style of trading I have is like, your intraday morning trades. And that's where I focus heavily on opening range breakouts and quick moves, quick scalps. But this one right here, I wanted to show everybody because Netflix was a perfect style for me. So I saw, actually, what, I'm going to throw on the 200 because I saw heavy consolidation in this box right here. And for me, there are a couple of things I like to do. I like to plot a level or a line break or a line to be broken in the future for me to consider the trade in the first place. That's number one. So if I have a box like this, of consolidation, I'm drawing two levels to see when I could enter. And I don't usually enter just automatically on that. I need more than that for my conviction here. So what I'm looking for here is I see consolidation along the 200 SMA. I love the 200 SMA. I know you do too. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you like the 200 SMA the most on the 15 minute. Is that right?
100%. You know it.
Yep. I love it. Yeah. So I saw consolidating here and I thought to myself, you know what? This is a perfect setup to watch because once this breaks above this 527 area, um, that's something that's going to catch my eye. I also looked at volume profile. I think you had Davis trades on here before talking about volume profile, and I love volume profile. It's one of my favorite tools to use. And so I saw a consolidation along the volume shelf here too. So that shows me it's kind of like a launch pad if you want to think about it that way. It's like we're consolidating in a heavy volume area. If we can break out of that, then we're going to be heading to the next zone, which is right around here, which if you kind of pull out here, you can see this is kind of like a supply zone up here.
Right.
So it's something that I was watching. And then, so that's two things, actually three things that I have now, consolidation, volume shelf along the 200 SMA. And then my absolute favorite is the Bollinger Band squeeze. So what you'll see is that in periods of consolidation, there are sometimes what we call a Bollinger Band squeeze when the Bollinger Bands are now inside of the Keltner channels. I can show you how that looks. And we're getting ready for a move in either direction depending on the setup of the squeeze. So it was aligning perfectly here. We were approaching this top level above the 200 SMA, coming off of the volume shelf, and on top of that, the squeeze was building from the what we call a lower histogram to the upper histogram. Now, I don't trade just based off this. I need a bunch of different reasons to enter a trade, but this is sort of like confirmation for me. and I see that it's building from sort of like a negative trend to a positive trend. And what happens is right when we pop out of the squeeze like this, you'll see a big move, which you saw right here.
Right.
So we saw a defining move right through my level. And once that happened, I entered the trade because then I entered the trade and we were in this supply zone here that's kind of like now a demand zone. Um, and I was watching it closely with a stop loss like right around the bottom of that supply zone,
Hmm.
um, and monitoring it. And then I swung Netflix then. So after that squeeze and the break above the level here and above that SMA and off the volume shelf was perfect. I swung it through this nice all-time high run. And so I wanted to bring this trade up because I thought this was just one of those examples I needed to share because there's just so much going for it. And it's all of the things I always trade with. So when I saw all four or five of those things coming together, that's one of those trades that you're just salivating over and ready to go. So that's kind of like I should say like longer term trading style for a swing trade. Um, so hopefully that's helpful in terms of like how I think.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Volume profile is still something that I don't incorporate enough of, and I'm still getting a hang of myself. So I'm, again, I say this time and time again, really grateful for guests when they come here, share their screens, and share setups such as this, which just explains it thoroughly so well. So that's really, really, really helpful. Do you have another one of these setups that you identify for day trading intraday?
So yeah, so intraday for me is sort of different than this. I have one of my favorite intraday setups here. So if you take a look, um, we have the what I call the opening range breaker. I have a video on this, and I usually trade this on SPY or QQQ, so the indexes. And what I'm looking for here, and everyone's kind of different on this. Everyone has their preference. I know some people are looking for a 15 to 30 minute range here where you can wait and see maybe on like a 5 minute chart or a 15-minute chart or a 10-minute chart. So they're looking for like a longer term range to be broken. For me, I am better with quicker moves in the morning. So what I use a lot of the time in the morning is a 3 minute chart, and my opening range is only evaluated on the first two candles. Some people like three or four. And what I'm doing here is I'm letting it sort of pick its direction. So we opened up, and for example, this is Friday. We hit a high of like 445, and our low was down like 444.34. And I was patient, waited, and was watching volume. And when I saw a move through our lower range here, I was also looking for confirmation in volume. And when I saw that, that automatically was a buy trigger for me. So I was buying puts and playing this on Friday. And this is one of my favorite morning styles of plays. I like to look for stocks. If I'm not trading the indexes, I'm trading anything has a lot of attention on it in the morning in the pre-market. So anything that's up 1% or two, has unusual volume. I'll be watching it and getting ready to play this style here. Another thing I like to do, I don't have an example of this one, but um, I will use my weekly watch list that I put out on Sunday, and I'll use any of the names on that. I may add a few here or there the night before, depending on when of the week it is. And I'm watching in the morning for unusual volume and looking for chart patterns. And one of my favorite is just a very, very basic. trend line. So if we're looking at like the 5 minute or the 15-minute chart, if I see in the morning a trend line forming, I'm watching to see a trend line break followed by volume confirmation. So I need to see, a decisive volume move through that trend line to sort of confirm the move for me. And that's another style of like scalp or quick day trade that I do in the morning. And then obviously, you and I both use trigger levels for moves as well. And I know in the GAA Discord, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys usually are watching one specific direction, right? So you have like one level you're watching on
Yeah,
each play.
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
I love that. Yeah, for like especially if you have a focus list in the morning, that's what I'm doing too. So I'm watching one way. I'm not throwing two levels on a chart necessarily. I'm watching so for example, let's say we're looking for a trend line breakup. We're watching that level only. We're not watching a put level. Um, and so that's basically how I trade. And honestly, 99% of my trading days, I'm done trading by 11 o'clock EST.
Right.
So that's just my style. I like to be done and I don't like to get my profits back. If I had a bad morning, I still stop because I know I'll just try to revenge trade. So that's just
100%.
kind of what I do.
Right. Now, thank you for all that explanation.
Sure.
100% about quitting even if, your morning didn't go well. Sticking to those preset rules that you set out for yourself consistently day in, day out is what makes a great trader such as yourself. Now, speaking of exactly that, me personally, I broke my game plans or my pre determined rules of not breaking my boundaries once in a trade last week, and I got punished for it. How long did it take for you to conquer your trading mistakes, and what were your biggest three trading mistakes that took the longest toll on your trading journey?
That's a good question. So, sort of along the lines of what I was talking about earlier, it took me a long time to get through my thick skull on how to, you know, prevent the mistakes that I was making. I think the biggest thing for people is you should be trying to correct one mistake at a time. So let's say you identify five mistakes you're making. You can't conquer those all at the same time. You should be working on one at a time, correcting one at a time. So for me, mine was chasing in the beginning of my career. I would chase just on FOMO, on a move that I figured was going to rocket even higher. I think that's a big thing in options community now too, is that, they'll see a post or they'll see somebody say that they're in a trade and they don't have the necessarily the discipline to wait for a better opportunity if they missed it, if they weren't directly on that alert or, on that trigger break. There's always time to wait for a retest or another level break again. So for me, my biggest problem was FOMO chasing. I identified that just through, like I said, journaling my trades and figuring out that I do it almost every single trade. Even when I think I'm not doing it, I'm not following my plan of waiting for a retest if I didn't hit or I didn't catch my current level break. In terms of the worst mistakes I've ever made, I've made some pretty bad mistakes in my career. Um, I think the ugliest mistakes I made were probably in the beginning, when I would average down. I remember I was trading a penny stock called T2, and I averaged down basically 90% of my portfolio, thinking that eventually this will have to break even. And then I ended up cutting like a $25,000 loss,
Ooh.
which was very, very, very painful. And I was new. I didn't know what I was doing. Now, I would never even put myself in a situation in the first place. So now I have a pretty strict set of rules for myself that I rarely put more than 1% or 2% of my portfolio into a trade. It depends what the trade is, to be honest. It depends how long term it is. I bought enough time in my options contracts. But I think, for me, it was that. And I also, when I first started trading options again, I didn't understand the concept of time decay or premium decay. Um, and I thought it was just like trading equities. So I was in the same mindset of, hey, I can add this dip, I can add this dip. And then, waking up the next morning and realizing that you're trading weekly contracts and the underlying price didn't even move, but how am I down? Um, you know, so for me, I took another massive loss in the beginning of my options trading career. I'm trying to remember I had two big losses. I know one of them was on Tesla, and I took a huge loss on that. I can't remember the second one, but it was a defining moment for me in terms of deciding to never average down like that again. And I think instead of beating yourself up, it's best for me to kind of step away from the computer, call it a day when you make a mistake like that, and then spend time reflecting. A lot of people will say they meditate after they trade. I think that's not a bad idea. I think it makes sense to step away from your computer, take a deep breath, and then reevaluate what you did and realize that tomorrow's a new day, and that there'll be plenty of other opportunities. Yeah, you made a bad mistake. Don't do it again. And the great thing about it is you don't have to do it again because if you manage your risk or your position sizing and you stick to your plan, it won't ever happen again. There's no way for it to happen again if you just stick to that plan. So that's one thing that I had always do. I have a big whiteboard in my office and I write always on there. I always write follow your plan. And I always write next to that, like if I make a huge mistake, I write down exactly how much I lost and why I lost and I have to remember that going into the next day and not make the same mistake twice. So that's just kind of the way I handle things in my past. So hopefully that's kind of helpful.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Um, I'm going to build off of that right now and ask you a follow-up question. You
Sure.
talk about, stepping away from your computer and taking some downtime from the market, from the screens. A lot of people can't get the fact that trading is a luxurious career where you can take time off for yourself whenever you feel like it, and they will get trapped within the market. Being a slave to the market and just being working for the market instead of working for a corporation. What is it, or what was it that made you realize that you should take some time away from the market every now and then? Or what's your trigger for, hey, maybe I should take a little de-stress time for myself?
Yeah, that's a very important thing to discuss. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think it's talked about enough, especially on FinTwit. I don't hear enough about the mental toll it takes on you. Um, and it's so real and you see it all the time with if someone gives me an angry response on Twitter or something, I used to always sit there and think to myself, I'm mad that they did that. And then I think to myself, what happened today for them? Was it a bad day? Did they take one of my plays and, take a loss? And then I, become empathetic now because it's so important to take breaks, like you said. And so because I have a full-time job on top of trading, and especially now that I have a little one, stress levels for me are at an all-time high. Um, so for me, when I need to step away, it's when I make an uncalled for mistake that I usually don't make. And it's uncharacteristic. I haven't made it in forever. And I sit there and I think to myself, why did you make that mistake? And most of the time, it's because I'm not focusing and not in the right headspace to be trading.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I may have like just gotten off of a meeting or just had a very stressful conversation for work, or something happened the night before at home and I was exhausted going into the morning. And I wasn't right in the head in terms of being ready to trade. And truly, I mean this. If you're not ready to trade that day, don't trade. Just don't trade because you need to be there, be focused, and be ready to go. This is your money you're dealing with. It's not just play money. And it's so easy to slip up when you're not having a good day or your mind's not in the right place. So for me, what I used to do all the time, I still do it. I'll even, post on Twitter. If I make a mistake or things are getting a little hectic at home or for work, I'll say, I'm taking some time off. I'm not trading this week. Um, and even then, it's not much of a break, because I have a full-time job too. But
Right.
it's enough for me to step away from trading. Um, and then once I start to feel that, I miss it, need to get back to doing it, I'll consider coming back and starting slow. But, I'm sure with you running a Discord, you can relate to this. Um, people get upset obviously when something doesn't go their way in trading, and the first reaction is to be angry and
Mm-hmm.
upset.
Yep.
Um, and that takes a toll on you. Like even the person that's upset, it takes a toll on them, and then they end up spiraling because they're upset and they don't take a break. They revenge trade, they rush into the next trade, and then boom, you're in a position where you might be blowing up your account. So it's so important. And I know you bust your butt. I always see that. I wanted to ask you, like, what do you do? Do you take breaks or are you just grinding 24/7 GA?
Um, I'll be honest. The majority of my breaks are intraday breaks. For example, some days, I'll look at pre-market. Not many of my setups are there,
Hmm.
or I didn't get much sleep the night before
Right.
because I'm anxious about the market, as many people might be. I'll just go ahead and sleep through the open, which funny enough just gives me a little bit of de-stress, gives me a little bit of easiness because I know, how when the open is, price is moving very volatile, and
Hmm.
it can be a little overwhelming, especially if you go in with a couple names to look at and all of them are triggering at the same time, or
Yep.
you need to watch indexes at the same time. So more so later in the day, it becomes a little bit easier on my mind, and I'll be able to get a little bit of de-stress and still trade that day. Otherwise, running a Discord, unfortunately, I don't get to take any
That's
vacations
true.
or time away from the market. And even if I do, I'm so intertwined within the market nowadays that even if I'm not trading, even if I'm on vacation, I will be checking the market religiously, minute by minute. It's just a little bit of an addiction. It's a little bit of a love and hate relationship. But not vacation, sorry, time away from the screen, time away not trading. Some people, they can manage looking at the market, but not putting any monetary value in, and that'll be a form of de-stressing without totally detaching from the market. But I am definitely a huge advocate of take time away from the market, and when I say that, if you have the luxury to completely disconnect, take 2 weeks off at a time. You can't just take, a
Yep.
couple days off and be back to 100% operation. You need to really want to trade again, not for making money, just because you miss it and you want to execute.
Yep. I agree with that. And you see the best traders out there, if they're not like in your shoes where they're running a Discord, they're just doing this full time. A lot of times they'll take a vacation somewhere and come back refreshed, with an easy mind, ready to go again. And I think that's important to do something you like when you take that break too.
A hundred
Um,
percent.
some people might like just sitting around watching TV. That's great. But for me, I think, the outdoors is a great way to kind of distress. So I think do something you really enjoy. And like you said, you need to want to come back. It's not one of those things where like, crap, I'm missing out, on so much money because I'm not trading. Uh, it needs to be like, I just miss trading. I miss finding those patterns, those plays, executing my plan. Um, those are the things you need to be thinking before you come back. And I agree with you. Like, honestly, now that I have so much going on at home, I don't think twice before I step away. I really don't. I haven't stepped away for 2 weeks before, but I will say right now, I'm sure I will in the future. Um, so that's great advice. I appreciate that.
100%. And I'm glad you're also an advocate of taking some time off. I really, really appreciate when other popular traders send out that message to their followers that, your mental health is the number one thing that's going to fuel your portfolio at the end of the day. If you cannot um, be in a position where you are executing to your fullest potential, then you shouldn't be trading for that day.
I agree. I agree. I always say it's 80% mental, 20%, trading. So it's like, or charting or, planning. So you can spend all the time you want putting together the most perfect setup, perfect plan. But if your head's not there, it doesn't matter. And you're not going to execute it right. And you'll fail every time if you don't, really make sure that your mental side of things are aligned when you're trading.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Well, Squeezy, I have your Twitter pulled up here and your LinkedIn or your links. Sorry. Do you want to go ahead and give the people a little bit of information of what you have to offer? Your YouTube, your Twitter, any upcoming, possible services you might have, anything? Please take the
Sure.
floor.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So, um, I've been posting more on YouTube recently. And what I'll do usually is try to get a gauge from, my Twitter audience, what they want to see. And when I get those ideas, I'll mock up a video when I have time, that little 30-minute stretch I get between changing diapers and putting my son down to sleep. Um, and so I would really appreciate if you guys check out my YouTube. I'm putting a lot of work into that recently. That's linked in my bio. I just posted one recently. It was called like Simple Steps to Level Up Your Trading. And that gets into the mental side of things. Kind of like what we
Those are
talked
great.
about here. Everyone talks about, you know, technical setups, chart patterns, the trading side of things, but no one really talks about the mental side of things. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Um, and then, like you said, I also have a link tree in my profile. I have some referral codes in there, or links in there, I should say, for TrendSpider. Obviously, everyone knows what that is. I just showed it. Awesome charting software, best of the best, in my opinion. Trader Sync is like, excuse me, is like a journal, and it's really easy to use. You can just export your trades from your brokerage and import them into TraderSync, and it shows you a bunch of different views about when you trade best. It gives you the option to log your trades and comment why you won or why you lost. I love it all around. I think it's a great tool, as well as black box stocks. Flow obviously is a big part of a lot of people's trading. Love the guys at BBS, Unusual Whales. Everyone knows UW, man's a legend. And then Cheddar Flow, another great flow service. So I have 5 links in there if you guys want to check it out. And then one more thing I'll say is that I've been working on the side, which I don't have a ton of time anymore, but um, on a scanner. And what I mean by that is it's a website on its own server, and I've back tested a ton of five strategies that I use, and a few of them I kind of showed today. They kind of deal with the TTM or the Bollinger Band squeeze. Those two terms are kind of interchangeable, TTM and Bollinger Band. Um, and there's some EMA setups, and then some more use of Bollinger Bands and inside bars. So it's five setups, and I for each setup I have a list of tickers that I've back tested, and that, as you and I both know, tickers respond differently depending on the indicator or the setup. A lot of them have personalities. They trade differently from one another, and they're sort of predictable sometimes if you go ahead and backtest a setup or a strategy. So I've done that for all five, and I'm building it into this scanner, which is going to be a real time scanner that's scanning the entire day and then popping up a signal saying this signal or this strategy is alerted um, on this stock at this time on this interval. So it's like the 5 minute interval, the 15-minute interval, or the daily. And I'm really excited about it. I put a ton of work into it already. We're still back testing and fine tuning it. So more to come on that. It's going to be a very, very affordable scanner. I sort of like how you do with your Discord, which I love. I want to make sure that people can afford it. I'm not hiking the price up. I'm just literally charging, what I think is a very fair price, and it takes money to, run the scanner in the first place because I'm using an API that's not cheap for real-time data. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to talk about that really quick. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. And I'll be posting more about it on Twitter. So more to come. I'm very excited about it.
Awesome, brother. I can't wait to be one of your first users. Very, very looking forward to that. Squeezy, thank you so much. Throughout all of this, I went ahead and showed the people everything you talked about, your Twitter, your links, your YouTube, your videos. Thank you so, so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know like you said, you work full time, you're trading on the side, and you just had a newborn. Congratulations again. So
Thank you,
thank you.
buddy.
Thank you so much for taking your time to be here.
Thank you, GA. And I want to say it was my honor, man. I really enjoyed talking to you, and maybe we'll have a reunion eventually in the future. And I look forward to trading with you this week.
Looking forward to it, brother. Thank you again.